What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Pro Football Focus Show here at RotoGrinders. I'm Stevie TPFL. It's Christmas Eve. It's week 16. We have football, 7 times this week, it feels like. We have so many football games, but we're going to talk about the main slate like we always do on this show. I'm joined by my good buddy, Ian Hartitz. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Stevie. You got your hat on that's bringing all of us Christmas cheer. We got some good football to talk about as we were talking about before the show. It's always a little bit interesting doing these earlier in the week, and then we have something like Ezekiel Elliott get ruled active 90 minutes before kickoff. Can kind of throw a wrench of thing, can flip a slate on its head, as we've been saying on the old Twitter sphere all season long. But yeah, man, think it's pretty nice though. You look at this main slate, at least there's no Dalvin Cook, no Alvin Kamara, no Derrick Henry, no Devontae Adams. Truly maybe the most wide open slate of the year. And if Tyreek's out, we're gonna be able to squeeze in the Chiefs, no problemo. So lots to discuss.
Listen, this might be one of the best main slates we've had all year because it's not like just, plug in Derrick Henry and stuff. Like,
Right.
I'm with you, buddy. I think that this slate's super interesting. And before we get into anything, before we start looking at the Mismatch Manifesto over there on Pro Football Focus, I have to take an L. Like, I was super wrong about Fournette. Was I wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know if I was necessarily wrong, but he scored 2 touchdowns. He got there in fantasy. That's what we play. We play DFS. He got there. I will take my L. Listen, I can fall in from the 1 yard line too. But listen, I'll say, like, I didn't like him last week on the show, and we got a lot of things right on the show last week, and I was wrong about Fournette. So
I was wrong as well. I'm not going to leave you hanging out to dry. I was also thinking it would make sense to fade him. It was looking good through 30 minutes, obviously not through 60, and that is the game we play. I do think we were correct about there not being a reason, like we weren't, saying, hey, go get on Gus Edwards or James White or one of these guys in a like price salary. I think the main point we made was, hey, if you're not going to go Fournette, if you're not going to go Henry, if you're not going to go any of these running backs, make sure you go to the passing games. Didn't exactly go our way with Fournette, but, I think we did help get some people on Tannehill, Corey Davis, and those things. So wasn't a total loss.
No, it was. I don't think it was a total loss either. If they listened to the bets part of the show, the bets were pretty on point too. So, it was a really solid week. But so even if you didn't play Fournette last week and you went Pollard or you went David Johnson, there wasn't a wrong, cheap type of play last week.
Yeah.
So, a lot of those guys, Ahmed, he opened up, he did really well. So. Let's get into the Mismatch Manifesto, week 16. We've already kind of, started talking about this slate in general. It's more of a condensed slate because we have games on Friday. We have games on Saturday. We got a Monday Night Football game. So let's look at explosive plays for the main slate. What are we looking at?
Yeah, just some quarterbacks popping off this week as ones that should be set up, to make big plays through the air. Looking at Deshaun Watson versus the Bengals, I think that makes sense. But again, it's just another like what he's done against the Colts and still gotten 2 L's despite having his teammates fumble inside the 5-yard line. Just absolutely criminal what he's had to go through this year. Nobody stands out more than Patrick Mahomes against the Falcons, as we probably could have guessed. But truly, we need to keep an eye on that Tyreek Hill hamstring injury because it's very tough to get Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek get that top stack in there. But if Tyreek is out, Mecole Hardman at just 3,100 sure is looking enticing in cash and tournaments alike. On the, Friday. So yeah, I keep all these days in my head. Friday, Kirk Cousins looking good against the Saints. But same thing we had against the Buccaneers a couple weeks ago, where it's one of these things where if they can give him time, he should be good. But if the pressure gets to him, which has a good chance of doing, things could be a little bit more rough. The Brady Bunch versus the Lions, as you all could have expected. And then also on Monday night, Josh Allen versus the Patriots. Man, that Bills line, I think it opened at 4.5. It's all the way up to 7. People are over Belichick and the Patriots. I don't blame them, man. I kind of think the Bills find a way to rout them as well. Quickly, the Giants and the Bengals are kind of popping as the bottom 2 teams. I would just say, because I know we'll probably talk about Giovanni Bernard later, I think the main reason why we like Giovanni Bernard in the post-Mixon, quote unquote era was because, okay, he's a scat back, receptions are good in fantasy football and all that. He had 1 target last week. He turned it into a 14-yard touchdown on a well-run angle route. But man, I feel like we got that game against the Steelers. Bengals offense wasn't as atrocious as normal. I would not go point chasing with Giovanni Bernard necessarily, even though it is a winnable spot. He's not getting the receptions. He's still in a dumpster fire of the offense. Just approach any of these Bengals, Jaguars, Jets teams with extreme caution, people. These are not the types of offense we should be sticking our neck out for.
Oh, we're gonna disagree on this one. I can't wait to talk about
Oh,
it. I'm super heavy on the Cincinnati Houston game already. So, listen, that's what make that's gonna make it fun. We're
yeah, we
gonna we're
good.
gonna bring all kinds of presents here. So, what's up, YouTube chat? If you guys are hanging out on YouTube, Devin just posted a link in there for $10 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium. Make sure you guys are checking that out. So take advantage of that. It's $10 off, man. $10. It's $10. Let's talk pace, Ian. What games are we looking at this week that could feature more of a pace?
Eagles, Cowboys standing out. Just all the stars are aligning for Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders this week. Got the increased pace to give him more plays. Got the Cowboys trash defense. Got the Eagles pressure to make life tough on Dalton. Truly, I mean, we haven't gotten to our best bets yet, but I have a feeling the Eagles are going to be popping up there. Falcons and Chiefs also popping up. That's just, I mean, truly, man. If Tyreek is out, like I just don't know how in cash you get away from Mahomes, Hardman, Kelsey, and just roll it back with Calvin Ridley, assuming Julio is going to be missing as well. A lot of game stack options there, though, either way. Also some fast ones on Saturday. Buccaneers at the Lions, 49ers at the Cardinals. Cardinals always kind of popping up. And last one I would just mention, or last two I mentioned, Broncos Chargers. Maybe a sneaky game stack potential there. I know how bad Drew Lock and these wide receivers look last week, but look, I mean, that's who Drew Lock is. He looks actually pretty damn good. Sometimes he threw 4 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, and then he looks atrocious, and none of his wide receivers get over 20 receiving yards. So I will say, the Herbert stacks, those are where you want to go. But then you look at Hamler and Judy under 4K. It's possible to do a game stack there. And then finally, Colts at the Steelers. Just need to kind of figure out what we think of this one. I'm curious on your overall thoughts of that game once we get to the best bets, maybe, because holy cow, man, this Steelers team is trash lately. But at the same time, I'm a little worried about trusting Philip Rivers going outdoors this late in December. So those are the pace ones.
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at this slate in general, when you're looking at the main slate, there are some good pace games. Like that Eagles Cowboys game, we don't have a ton of great games on this slate. Like I think 2 games over 50, implied totals. So like, this Philly Dallas game, not only is it going to be fast paced, there's a ton of fantasy options in that game. So let's move right along here. One of the games you didn't mention though, Houston Cincinnati, that game has a good pace too. I just want to keep pointing that game out,
I know
Ian. Like
you are correct.
I just want to keep pointing that game out for when we get. I gotta start building my points now.
It's a all right. It's a reasonable run back. I'm already coming around to it.
And like, okay, so you don't even have to play Geo. So we'll talk about it when we get there. You play Deshaun Watson with Cooks and run it back with like T Higgins. I know
Oh,
you can
yuck.
get behind that a little bit.
Yuck.
Um, let's talk pressure. Who's gonna be under pressure this week?
Yeah, and again, just if you look out there on the Friday, DFS showdown grind, just realize Kirk Cousins, Vikings have one of the most efficient passing games in the league. I don't necessarily think Lattimore and Jenkins can hang with Thielen and Jefferson. If you just look back at Thielen versus Lattimore specifically over the past few years, this dude's been getting cooked, similar to Jair Alexander. But Kirk Cousins popping as the guy with the most pressure concerns. But on the main slate in particular, Colt McCoy, Daniel Jones, whoever's under center, Matt Ryan. So, maybe think about that KC defense as well. They've been getting some good pressure all season long. Sam Darnold should be screwed against Myles Garrett and company. That could be a nice little, just go with Nick Chubb in that Browns defense. I'm sure we'll see the Jets fall back to earth to a pretty heavy extent this week. Drew Lock could be screwed against the Chargers. And finally, Russell Wilson against the Rams. I will say though, man, and again, I don't like get ahead of the best bets too much, but like we are just really leaving the Seahawks for dead after Russ didn't play great and hasn't played great, but the Rams just lost to the Jets. And I feel like Russ is getting, when the Seahawks are getting more crap just for really not being all that impressive over the past few weeks. Like the Rams and the Jets game and the Dolphins game, we have seen Goff transform this team to a freaking shit show at certain points. And that always is a possibility, especially against Russell Wilson. So Ben Roethlisberger, Kyler Murray, that could be an interesting one. I'm just having a lot of time. Yeah, man. Kyler Murray, he is running again. He is back there in that top 3 quarterback train. We were talking about that last week, maybe pivoting away from Jalen Hurts. Obviously Jalen was just fine for himself, but Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins did themselves some solid days as well. Last one I'll bring up, Mitch Trubisky against the Jaguars, popping as someone that should have a lot of time. Man, you look at Mitch, and I think he's had like 6 or 7 starts this year. He has finished either top 7 among all QBs or outside the top 20. Nowhere in between. Epitome, boomer bust QB1.
Listen, that's what we like to see, right? Like if you're trying to pivot off of David Montgomery chalk, you can throw Trubisky out there with like Allen Robinson and Cole Kmet, and hope you get some touchdowns. So,
First or last.
yeah, listen, that's how you should play tournaments, though. Like,
Yep.
Mitchell Trubisky is the definition of a quarterback that you want to play in tournaments. So, I can't wait to talk about that Seahawks game. I've talked about it already a couple times this week, but I feel like there's only two ways to approach that game: full fade or stack. Because it's either going to be like a straight shit show, like you said, or it's going to be like this high scoring 65, 70 point game where both the offenses finally click, so let's look at yards before contact and stuff like that. What are we looking at this week as far as that kind of stuff?
It's the Eagles' world. Everyone else is living in it on the ground. 4.09 combined yards before contact. No one else on the main slate is over 3.11, man. That is absolutely ridiculous. I've not seen a discrepancy between the top ranked run game mismatch and everyone else this bad. When I was putting this stuff together, like getting the yards before contact, I had a big grid. Rush attempts on the x-axis, yards before contact on the y. And like I almost didn't see the Cowboys at first because they were that far removed from every other defense in terms of how bad they have been. Look, this game could get out of hand fast. I am not confident in the Cowboys' chance to move the ball. I didn't talk about this enough with the pressure, but Andy Dalton this year has looked good for 12 quarters against the Vikings, Bengals, most recently the 49ers. Those are the league's 24th, 31st, and 32nd ranked defenses in pressure rate. Eagles are fourth. Look, their secondary is banged up. Maybe Amari Cooper, maybe one of those guys could be a nice little run back candidate for us if they can get time. But I really think we're going to see the kryptonite of this Cowboys offense come out. That is their offensive line being overwhelmed by a good pass rush. And if that's the case, man, they still move fast, even though they don't have Dak. It's just going to be Jalen Hurts and company having the ball for a long time, and I do not think the Cowboys have the horse to stop them. So Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, again, if you don't want to go the Chiefs route and cash, I do think going with the Eagles run game probably makes the most sense. A couple other matchups that do look good, though. J.K. Dobbins against the New York Giants, someone we want to continue to pay attention to. Broncos versus the Chargers is still going to be pretty split up between Gordon and Lindsay. I'm not really trying to chase that 2-touchdown performance. And the 49ers versus the Cardinals. It worked out with Jeff Wilson last week. He found the end zone. Wasn't quite as big a performance as we wanted. It's not the same dream matchup, but Mostert already seemingly out for this week. It's much more, insured. And Shanahan can always throw a wrench in that backfield committee, but Jeff Wilson could be a nice little post-hype spot here. Oh,
yeah,
crap. That's Saturday though.
No, it's still a good point to bring up for the Saturday slate because it's a 3-game slate, and there's some running back options on that slate. Obviously you're gonna have to make the decision if you're gonna go Fournette against Detroit, which maybe this time he doesn't fall into the end zone, but it's a great matchup against Detroit. Yeah. But so yeah, I think it's a good point to bring up because it could easily be like McKinnon. They use Juszczyk sometimes. So it's still Shanahan. And that's the one thing that you got to worry about when you're looking at that Saturday slate. So, let's talk about the passing game. Listen, Patrick Mahomes is going to come at the top of this list, and for good reason. You were talking about the Eagles run game. Something that could be super different this week is going Sanders with the Eagles defense. You talked about Andy Dalton being under pressure. Well, if they're down in that game and they're throwing a ton and he's under pressure, you have so many opportunities for Sanders and the Eagles defense to get there. And maybe Hurts doesn't get a rushing touchdown. He only scores 20 fantasy points. Well, Patrick Mahomes is going to score more than 20 fantasy points. And I'm sure you're about to tell us why with the passing game this week.
Yeah, easily the best match. Falcons, I believe they're second worst in the league in fantasy points per game allowed to the quarterback position. It has just been brutal. And yeah, everything is just turning out Chiefs' way this week for sure. Also, though, coming in number 2 are Baker Mayfield and the Browns against this Jets defense. The thing about the Jets, man, and we see this with the Buccaneers a little bit too, they're quote unquote a good run defense. That's because they put 8 guys in the box against pass plays more than just about anybody else. So Baker, the issue has always been volume. He did not throw, more than 30 times. He only had 2 games with more than 30 pass attempts in weeks 1 through 12. He's passed that in 3 consecutive weeks now. They're finally comfortable letting Baker throw a little bit more just in neutral situations. So past 4 weeks, Baker's been the fantasy QB 10, QB 3, QB 3, and most recently QB 12. Hey, Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, even you can make reasonable, cheaper stacks. I don't know if they have the same huge upside that, maybe someone else does, but the matchup's good enough. Baker's balling, at least give Higgins and Jarvis Landry a long look because I think this Browns passing attack should keep on keeping on. With that said, Giants passing, yeah, stay away from the Giants as a whole this week. It's just a dumpster fire. Same thing with the Jets. Eagles passing game, not looking great. I think that's a little bit flawed from what Wentz has kind of done there. Hurts wasn't magnificent last week. It wasn't the most impressive, 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns ever. Whatever, we'll take it. And the fact that he is such a rushing threat, and we see it with Lamar Jackson over and over again, like defenses have to play these rushing threats different. That's why sometimes when they do put up big yards, guys are more wide open, and it just doesn't look the same as, someone just dissecting the defense from the pocket. Doesn't matter in fantasy land. We'll take the points however they come. Yeah, and last point, Russell Wilson, not looking good against the Rams, but dude, it's just been so weird with Russ. Like they stopped being able to create big plays, and that was like the entire just identity of their offense. I mean, he had multiple completions of 20 plus yards in every single game up until week 14, where he had one. In week 15, he did not have a single completion of 20 plus yards. So, he had 3 such completions all but 4 of his first 12 games of the year. I don't know where it went. It's not the get right matchup, but man, I do wonder if in tournaments, if we, bite the bullet and say, hey, it's Russell Wilson, maybe they come back this week.
Listen, it's again, like we're going to talk about that game when we get there, but like they're fighting for the NFC West. Like this game could be like a straight shootout. Like this might be like Carroll's like, hey, Russ, go win me the game. Like I'm not gonna limit you. Like, they've been fantastic this season. They're 10-4. We can't really like argue, but like, would they be 12-2 if they didn't limit Russ so much and just let him kind of do his thing? But this is a big game this week, and I feel like it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be a defensive showdown like it was the first time these two teams played a few weeks ago, or it's going to be a massively high-scoring game that you need pieces to. Yeah. YouTube chat, Las Vegas Raider. How do we know that Andy Reid won't start his starters or sit his starters after the first quarter? Well, Patrick Mahomes is trying to win an MVP. So May 17th, week 17, maybe they, maybe sit him down for the second half if they're blowing the team out or anything, but they're locked in. I get the question. Like they're locked in. They're going to have home field throughout. Like it's no question, but I think that at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is trying to win an MVP, and that's one of the things that we got to kind of think about, but I don't know. We'll have to kind of see. Like I have to go back and look. I don't think he has done that in the past, right?
No, I think he makes it pretty clear. I mean, Mahomes, he's played, he's played week 17 the last 2 years. He's only thrown 25 and 24 passes, but they've also had comfortable double-digit wins in both times. But he played 94% snaps last year. The year before it was 76%, but that was because they won 35-3. So, okay, if they put up 5 touchdowns in the first half, then maybe they'll pull out Mahomes a little bit early, but he's already
You're probably already there then.
He's already got you 5 touchdowns by that point. And then in 2017, it was Mahomes' first start, and they just completely, like Alex Smith didn't start at all. So I think, if we hear murmurs about it being a potential from, Schefter or whoever, okay, we'll adjust accordingly. But I wouldn't just think, they could pull him out the first quarter. Unless we hear something very specific to that, I would not worry about it. It is a fair question.
I'd be much more worried about it next week than this week. Yeah. Like we're still week 16. I think they're going to keep.
They're not going to take 3 weeks off in a row. I mean, yours
right.
I feel like that's too risky.
Yeah, this is a team that's won 9 straight games. Like, why? Like, you want to stay hot going into the playoffs, and like you said, you don't really want to take 3 weeks off. You come out flat in that playoff game, and let's talk EPA before we get into our best bets. What are we looking at this week, Ian?
Yeah, just offenses in the best overall spots. Chiefs and Buccaneers are standing. Chiefs, Buccaneers, and Packers stand out over almost anyone else. Packers and Titans, man, it's got the highest game total for a reason. There could be all sorts of points flying on the scoreboard in that one. Browns offense, Texans offense, also looking good. Oh man, as I'm looking at this, your Bengals don't look as bad as I thought.
There we go. He's coming around.
More and more. A couple of defenses not looking so, or a couple of offenses not looking so hot. Giants, Broncos, Seahawks again, and the Jets. So the usual suspects. Again, just can't stress enough. Just stay away from some of these dumpster fires of offenses. I get, with the Broncos maybe taking a flyer on Hamler or Judy just because of that price tag, but please, just looking at this, EPA chart, do not just, if you see dark red, probably a good sign you shouldn't be actively looking to stack that offense.
Let's get into our best bets this week. You've kind of already talked about a couple. I'm sure you're going to talk about the Philly Dallas game. Philly at -2 looks so juicy, and I'm sure you're going to get into that. Like, even if you want to take the over in that game, I don't hate it, but I love Philly -2. Ian, am I stealing one of yours here? Are we on the same page with this one?
We are exactly on the same page. I bet it earlier this week, and I was just seeing where my book has it, and they're up to 2.5. So that's good. But yeah, open as a pick, which would have been nice to get it there. But man, I just think that pressure, it's going to be too much for Dalton. I know it's a banged up secondary, but who cares if you don't have enough time to get the ball downfield? Dalton made a few truly good throws last week, but again, we have seen 12 quarters of competence in this post-Dak offense. I'm not expecting that to continue. I mean, look, this last time, I know it was a different game when they played, but like Wentz was awful in that first game between these two teams. It just didn't matter. It was still a blowout. So different time of the season, but I just think the Eagles are on a different plane than this Cowboys team, which is sad because neither of them are a very good team at all. But particularly if it hurts, just giving them this spark. And I think the rest of the team's been playing better, and they can do the one thing that the Cowboys have proven again and again and again they can, and that is stop the run. So Eagles -2. Also, man, talking about the Seahawks a little bit, I think Seahawks -1 is not giving Russ nearly enough credit. Again, the Rams just lost to the Jets. We have seen Jared Goff single-handedly lose them games. We've seen Russ not be a world beater for a couple games, and he's had one or two complete duds. But between Goff and Russ, like it's 100% Russ, and we would all do that. And hey, we should give some credit to the Seahawks defense at some point, man. They are no longer the laughing stock that, I think a lot of us got used to treating them as over the first 2 months of the season. I mean, going back to week 11, even going back to week 10, when the last time they played the Rams, they haven't allowed over 23 points in a game since week 9. So they've actually had 4 straight games under 20 points and allowing, they've had 6 straight games under 300 passing yards. So competition hasn't been all that great. The football team, Jets, Giants, Eagles, Cardinals, and Rams. But with that said, again, this Rams passing game hasn't been looking all that great. I do not think they deserve the benefit of the doubt at this point. Give me the Seahawks -1. And finally, have another parlay for you all. The $100 to win 272 cash last week. Buccaneers, Bills, Bucks, Chiefs. Love to see it. Got another one for this week. 100 to win 350. Our 3, higher favorite, no problems. Buccaneers over the Lions, Texans over the Bengals, Ravens over the Giants. Don't anticipate too many problems there. The 2 mini toss-ups. I do like the Packers over the Titans. Credit to Tannehill and everything they've done. The problem is this Tennessee defense just has not come close to stopping anybody. The 2 times this year we've seen Rodgers and any sort of trouble was against the Panthers and against the Buccaneers, both of whom have pretty solid pass rushes. Not quite the case in Tennessee. I just do not see them slowing down Rodgers. Give me him over Tannehill in this one. And then also I do like the Chargers over the Broncos. Wide range of possibilities with Drew Lock. He came back and won this game the first time they faced this year, but I still think, seeing this line, I think it's only at 3.5. Like, all right, Justin Herbert in this, even a banged up version of this offense, far more consistent than what the Broncos have provided us this year. I think the defenses are more or less a wash. So Buccaneers, Texans, Ravens, Packers, Chargers, pretty much 3.5 to 1 odds. Gotta love it.
The only thing that I'm slightly concerned with that Chargers is the Chargers defense banged up. Bosa potentially out. Like that's the only thing that like scares me a little bit. But like everything else, like I said, I'm with you on the Philly -2. I love the over in the Cincinnati Houston game, 45.5. That game, like there's no defense going to be played in that game, and the over of 45.5, like I would probably take the over up to like 48 in that game. So like I think that game is a little too low. And I like Tampa -9.5 against Detroit on that. What is it? Saturday game. So, all right, Ian, let's get into some picks, positional picks. We'll start with cash games like we always do. We'll start with quarterback. You've kind of already talked about it. We both are on the same page. Like if you're not playing Mahomes, you're probably playing Jalen Hurts in cash.
Yeah, I mean, that's the conclusion I came to. And again, if Tyreek is going to be out, that really affords us so much more flexibility with Mecole at 3,100. Look, earlier this year, like we did have to kind of worry about this because when Sammy Watkins missed time, we did not see Mecole step into the starting lineup. It was actually Pringle and also just primarily Demarcus Robinson. But if you look at last season when Tyreek missed time, Mecole was the direct backup for Tyreek Hill. I mean, he went in the 4 games that Tyreek missed last year. Mecole played 73%, 63%, 63%, and 61% of the snaps. And also, Mahomes truly just loves Mecole Hardman. If you look at just, targets per route run this year, it's Kelsey, Hill, and then Hardman in the Chiefs offense. So you see Hardman, target almost literally twice as often as Pringle, almost twice as often as Robinson. So, 9 targets last week. Hardman, it's never been a situation where he's gotten a bunch of targets. He hasn't done much of it. It's just a situation of him needing to get those targets. We should have a chance to complete those Mahomes stacks this week. I guess the question though is, Who do we stack Jalen Hurts with if we want to go that route? I think it's Miles Sanders.
You know, I don't hate Sanders. I don't hate playing him by himself, and I don't hate like pairing him with a tight end to just fill a tight end spot. So whether it be Ertz or Goddard, they're running through like so many like double tight end sets. Like Goddard and Ertz both played over 80% of the snaps last week, and they both ran over 30 routes. So like when you're getting that type of route, and snaps from tight ends, like okay, I'll play one of those tight ends with Hurts, but I don't really trust any of the wide receivers, to be honest, like Rager or Jeffrey or Ward or any of those guys. So like I don't hate potentially pairing Hurts with Sanders. If you do that though, you really are gonna need like what, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's true. I would say if you are going to go with, I agree with you, tight ends. I mean, look, both tight ends played more snaps than any wide receiver last week, but Rager did leave early with the ankle. We'll see how, I think he was already practicing on Wednesday. If you are going to take a shot with any wide receiver, it should be Rager.
Yeah, talent wise, sure. Like
I'm just saying, team high 8 targets,
yeah.
before he left. I agree. Give me Goddard before over any of them, but give me Rager over Jeffrey, whatever Quez Watkins is, and all these guys for sure.
Yeah, like just give me the talented guy. Don't give me the old man Alshon Jeffrey. We talked about cash. Let's talk more tournaments. I do think that like this slate, I'm gonna have a really condensed player pool. Especially at quarterback. Is there anything that you want to bring up here as far as quarterbacks go?
Two other excuse me. The 2 other options I did like Deshaun Watson in the Houston offense against the Bengals.
That a boy.
Cooks,
he's coming around.
I had this written down well before we started this on our feud.
Okay.
Hanson, Cootie, Cooks, just a very affordable stack to make, even though Watson is the 3rd highest priced quarterback. I don't think any of us expecting the Bengals to shut down the Texans. Makes you just, sad all over again that Will Fuller won't be in this spot to experience the inevitable smashing. But I'd say Watson, those receivers, and then to your point, if you want to run it back with Giovanni Bernard, I guess it is legal to do so. And also Mitchell Trubisky at 5,700 against the Jaguars. Exactly. If you don't want to pay up for David Montgomery and you can't get up there, well, it makes sense to at least have some exposure to his Bears passing game, because I do not see a scenario where the Jaguars are holding them, to freaking 10 points or something like that. They're going to score. If it's not going to be on the run game, probably going to be through the air. Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney. They kind of changed up their receiving core last week. Anthony Miller, for like the 10th time in the past 2 years, has been like just randomly outright benched, more or less. So can't go to Anthony Miller. But Darnell Mooney, they gave him season high amount of work in the slot, got him a design rush attempt. I do think that he is once again in play, even after having scored back-to-back weeks. So, Trubisky, Mooney, Robinson, Cole Kmet's going to be a real popular tight end at just 3K. He played every single snap last week. So, yeah, don't sleep on his Bears offense, averaging over 30 points per game since Trubisky got back under center.
Yeah, out of nowhere. So you pretty much brought up everybody. I do think Deshaun Watson's going to be really low owned, kind of sandwiched between like Hurts and Mahomes. Again, I just want to bring up like Russell Wilson. I feel like you either fade that game or you stack it. I don't think like there's no in between. Like I don't think you play like Metcalf or like pieces or anything like that. Like you're stacking the game with like Wilson and Metcalf or Lockett and running it back with like Kupp and Woods or however, or you're just not playing that game. Because I feel like it's either going to go off or it's just not going to get there ceiling wise. And then you mentioned like Trubisky. I don't hate that. Baker Mayfield's the other guy that I had written down that I don't hate. And as much as I hate to say it, I like his pieces more. Like I like Deontay Johnson and stuff, but I think eventually the Steelers are going to come out and actually look like a team that is crushed, or that is going to crush. And I feel like, that's a spot. Like I don't love Ben, but I love his pieces a lot more. And like, running it back with like T.Y. Hilton and stuff, Jonathan Taylor, whatever you want to do. But I just want to mention him because I might like build a couple teams and like, oh, you didn't mention him on your show. So
I was looking at Claypool and like, okay, I can see that him or Deontay. I am not touching Juju's corpse at this point, but we did see Claypool, really get back to being, a fully solidified member in 3 wide receiver sets, as he should be. Yeah. He's been the best Steelers wide receiver all year.
Yeah, and like Deontay Johnson's just going to get a gazillion targets, so you have to like consider him. So let's talk running back. We'll start with Cash first. Obviously, we're waiting on a lot of news here. We're waiting on like is this James Robinson thing a thing? Is Zeke going to play? Is Antonio Gibson going to play? Is James Conner going to play? Is Duke Johnson going to play? So bear with us on that. But, it's Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning. What are we looking at for cash game running backs right now?
Yeah, look, if James Robinson plays people, that's going to be an awfully hard one to trust. Matchup, high ankle sprain. I mean, just does
Yeah.
not mix. And I would say that if you are going to dart throw anybody out of that backfield, it should be Davina Zigbo over Dari Ogunbowale. Look, I just think Dari, Chris Thompson, they are true scat bags. If anyone has a chance at getting, double digit carries, it's going to be a Zigbo. It might just be a situation to fade as a whole. Talk about Miles Sanders. He stands out to me as potentially the best play on the board. I just don't even see much of a reason to pay up for Taylor, Eckler, Montgomery, Chubb, or Chubb. Okay, I think it's fair to give those guys higher median projections, but I think Sanders has every bit of a good chance of getting there. One of the concerns with Sanders over the past few weeks was Boston Scott playing so much more, but with Jalen Hurts under center, they've been more willing to leave Sanders out there almost all 3 downs, back-to-back games with an 80% snap rate. So love to see that. And yeah, I'm fine just trying to get Sanders in pretty much all lineups of all shapes and sizes. Darrell Henderson, man, 4,500. I'm surprised he's not popping up with a little bit higher ownership, I guess, because your guy Giovanni Bernard's right there next to him. But one of these two guys, I think, allows you to save a good amount of money, and you don't have to get as risky as going down to Jaguars. With Cam Akers dealing with the high ankle sprain, you look at Henderson, and they've had 5 games where Akers had fewer than 5 snaps. He's had 14, 21, 9, 14, 17 touches. And the last 2 in particular, he was even out there out snapping Malcolm Brown. So hasn't looked fantastic on the ground since their bye week. He was kind of dealing with that quad injury, but I don't know, man. I just think Darrell Henderson, he's still going to be the likely lead back of a Rams offense that, hey, should have to, run the ball to some extent to try to keep it out of Goff's hands for the entire game. So we'll see how that one goes. Maybe the move, though, is just paying up a little bit more into that, mid 5K range for Le'Veon Bell in cash games. He's going to be chalky, similar to Fournette situation where I could see it busting. I do think this is a little bit safer. We feel better about the Chiefs offense and the Buccaneers. Le'Veon Bell has been active, been working ahead of Darrell Williams. So we're not having to make that same leap of faith of last week. Fournette hopefully plays over Shady and Keyshawn Vaughn. We know that more about Le'Veon. The price is a little bit more expensive than it was last week, obviously, but Falcons defense, obviously not one we ever worry about with running backs. So cash games, definitely Miles. I understand eating the chalk for Le'Veon Bell. And I'd say if you want to go lower, it's between Darrell Henderson and Giovanni Bernard. I would give the slight edge to Gio, but I do think it's close.
All right, so for what it's worth, as far as like the Love Bell, like if you want to play him in cash, I'm not gonna like sit here and argue it, but I do think he's a terrible play. Like he's still only gonna play what 55% of the snaps. Like the last time that Edwards-Helaire
touches though.
Yeah, but 15 touches, and if he doesn't find the paint, like they like to use Darrell Williams a little bit more in the passing game too. So, listen, if Tyreek misses, I like Bell a lot more. I do think like that correlates a little bit more. I think Bell could get a couple extra targets if Tyreek is out. But if like Tyreek plays and this offense is a full go, like Andy Reid doesn't like running the football. Like the last time Helaire was out in week 13, like Bell ran the ball 11 times and Williams ran the ball 6 times. So like I don't think he's a lock like Pollard would be if Zeke didn't play. I even think like I would have preferred like Fournette more than like the situation for Lev Bell. Like the Henderson call. Gio is a guy that I definitely like right now. He's in like my like midweek build. Like right now I have him and Montgomery with Sanders. So I think Montgomery is going to be pretty popular. He should be. It's against Jacksonville. It's a good spot. Nick Chubb is another guy going up against the Jets. Like you said, the Jets like to stack the box. Should Nick Chubb be chalk? I don't know. I think that could he get there? Sure. I think that it's really hard to play like split backfields, even in good matches at like this is the highest price dude on the slate. So some tournament options like Eckler is a guy that I really like for tournaments this week. I don't think he'll be popular with Montgomery and Chubb and Taylor and Sandals right there. So I'm really looking at Eckler for tournaments. And like if you're on that other side of the Seattle game, like I keep going down that Chris Carson route, just kind of wanting those touchdowns. And I like David Johnson as well.
Yeah, I like the Carson call a lot. Had him down. I think him and potentially stacking the Seahawks defense. Again, they've been solid. Like Jamal
They've
Adams,
been really good. Yeah.
they've been really good, man. Like Jamal Adams, okay, he's not Derwin James. He's not someone that's great at coverage. The dude's got like 9.5 sacks this year. Like they did not have a pass rush or coverage to start the season. I don't think they really still have coverage, but at least they now have a pass rush. And obviously Jared Goff is a bit of a statue in that pocket. So yeah, Carson, in that Seahawks defense against a quarterback that we know is prone to, those 3 turnover type games. Yeah, I like that. Also, just right underneath them, J.K. Dobbins, and also loop back around with the Ravens defense going up against the Giants offense that just looked broke more weeks than not all season long. So Dobbins, it's unfortunate he loses as much as he does to Lamar and Gus Edwards, but he's still the featured back there. And I think if we do see, with Lamar at second games where they really kind of are able to win by multiple scores, we don't really see him lean on his legs quite as much. He does tend to go through the air a little bit more often. So, haven't gotten that just true blow up game from Dobbins. I think he scored in 4 straight. Like he's been solid, but wouldn't be shocked against, not a bad Giants defense. But again, Dobbins, all the usage metrics are where we want them to be. He's awfully low for a guy that's, over a touchdown favorite at home against an offense that, again, could be turn the ball over frequently. So Carson, the Seahawks, Dobbins, and the Ravens defenses like those RB DST stacks for sure.
I just want to throw one more guy out there that is potentially someone that I'm looking at right now. It's Ito Smith. I want to pay attention to this whole situation a little bit more, but he has kind of been like the garbage time running back for this team. And like if you're playing the Chiefs and you think they're going to get up, I'm trying to find that like cheap pivot, and I think he is someone that could get 10. And if he finds an end zone, then we're looking at 16, 17 points. Like he's 4K. So listen, I was way wrong with this last week with James White. But he's just the guy that I have kind of written down right now as like a potential pivot off of like Henderson and Giovanni Bernard.
I guess it's a potential pivot. I just think his upside, he doesn't have like a ceiling. And if we're going to save money, there's enough at wide receiver.
That is true. There's a ton
Mecole,
of wide receiver.
Hamler, just there's enough guys under 4K there where, hey, if Ito was 3K with the old pricing system, I'd be there with you. But these days, if you're not anything resembling a 3-down run, like the Falcons were up 17-0 at halftime last week. I think they ran the ball like 13 total times. So it's just, I kind of want to fade that whole backfield.
All right. Let's get into wide receivers. You kind of already talked about there's a lot of value at wide receiver. What are you looking at for cash games at wide receiver?
Yeah, again, Tyreek is out. Mecole Hardman at 3,100. Sign me up. Hamler at 3,200. We were on him the week he went off, and he was still min price. Fell back to earth last week because Drew Lock, again, didn't enable any of his wide receivers to get even 20 yards. That will not be happening, all the time. Keep an eye on these Chargers wide receivers. Jalen Guyton sitting there at 3,200. We've seen his and Tyron Johnson's role really increase without Keenan Allen in the fold. So he's someone where, again, that Chargers-Broncos game, as we were talking about, could be a sneaky shootout, particularly if Joey Bosa ends up being sidelined, to your point from earlier. Other than that, I think then we're starting to pay up a little bit. But, we're starting Higgins, Kiki Cutie. I think, again, just attacking these Bengals, Jets, Jaguars defenses with some of the complementary pieces, those are the spots that we want to, go after. Maybe they're not complete number one alphas. But looking at a couple tournament guys, been talking up the Eagles a lot, but I think if you do want to run it back, Amari Cooper at 5,700 is certainly in play. I'm worried about the pressure, but it's not like Dalton's going to be on his back every single play. And against that secondary, Cooper might only need 6-7 targets to make the most out of it. He's had insane home and away splits ever since he joined the Cowboys. He does happen to be back home. Keep an eye on Darius Slay, but it's just not something I'm super worried about. Slay won the matchup against them last year when it was Lions versus Cowboys. Maybe it was 2 years ago, but either way, I think you brought this up last week, actually. Like when Slay shadows someone, it's just straight up man-on-man covers. Like they give him no help, and it's almost like arguably a better situation for the wide receiver because they don't have to worry about one defender. It's just a very tough position for Slay to be in. Not necessarily worry about that with Cooper. And man, this one feels iffy to say. Might be coming back here next week saying, why the hell did I say that? But Sammy Watkins at 5,000, man. If Tyreek's going to be out, everyone's going to go on Mecole, and I get it for cash. Everyone's going to be on Kelsey. But Sammy is just that guy where he's out there running all the routes, and I just don't think anyone really expects much of him. He has started to look a little healthier. He jumped over a dude, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, like actually hurdled someone, which, hey, if you're not healthy, I think you'd have a, much harder time to pull that task off. Just a dream matchup. Look, Sammy has gone off in week 1 and the playoffs pretty much his entire career with the Chiefs. Hasn't exactly made a lot of sense, but like a week 16 random Sammy Watkins explosion, it just seems to make too much sense for the funky year that we've been living in 2020. So Watkins, if there's no Tyreek, hey, we've seen the floor, but again, this is the best case matchup we could ask for. If he does wind up getting 8 to 10 targets, we've seen him in the past make the most of it.
Yeah. My wide receivers are always so based on like what type of stack I'm building at quarterback. So, Amari Cooper makes a ton of sense this week. I'll have some CD Lamb too. I like the slot matchups against Philly. It's something that I've attacked a lot this year. Just kind of looking at it, if depending on who starts at quarterback for Washington, Terry McLaurin might be in play there at 6.7K. Jarvis Landry, you talked about Cleveland throwing the ball more. Jarvis Landry's seen a huge uptick with them throwing the ball. You mentioned Sammy Watkins. I was going to mention him. Rashard Higgins, if you want to go that route. If you're playing the Cleveland side and you want to run it back with Jamison Crowder, I don't hate Captain Check down there. So, you mentioned Mooney earlier. I don't really like any of the Jacksonville guys. That's the only problem with like stacking Chicago is just trying to find a run back. If you're playing the LA side of things, Keenan Allen, you can run it back with any of those Denver guys that are cheap. So let's move on to tight end. Obviously Travis Kelce is where you want to try to be at in cash games this week. I think there's a huge drop off, but it's always hard to pay 8,500 for a tight end.
Yeah, man. But I will say again, Kelce is number 4, I think, in receiving yards in the league. He's still top 5. And, you just see that Tyreek Hill is there at 9K, even more expensive. The disparity is much closer than it was when he was closer to 7K. But, it is a situation where, I do think it's reasonable to almost project him for more than his salary implied total, as egregious as his salary is at this point. If you want to pay down, though, Cole Kmet, again, is sitting there at 3K, played every single snap last week. Jimmy Graham still gets some targets, but Kmet's out there all the time. I'd rather do that than, go up to Schultz or Hurst. Dallas Goedert at 3,600, I think makes a lot of sense for the Hurst stacks in particular. But, there's just not that many cheaper options this week with, the Vikings off the main slate. Can't try to go back to with Irv Smith, who busted last week, but had the snaps that we wanted. I just don't know if there's anyone really underneath 3K. And we'll see if some injuries break our way. Before Sunday comes around. Obviously, Mo Alley Cox continues to be banged up. That would open up the Colts guys if he ends up being ruled out. I don't think that's super likely, though. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be paying up. Very hard to fade Kelce. But again, like we talked about last week, one of the ways that you can make a little bit more contrarian lineups with these Chief stacks is to pretty much treat Kelce as a receiver, put him in that flex. If you want to do that and pair with Mark Andrews, Logan Thomas, even maybe Dallas Goedert, I think those guys do have similar wide receiver 1 upside. Wouldn't go, too much further down the stretch trying to do a 2 tight end stack. But I do think, beyond Kelce, Andrews, and particularly Thomas, what he's been doing over the past month could also present not the same upside, but enough to at least warrant a few of those types of stacks.
Yeah, if you're not playing Kelce in cash, you're paying down. You could potentially play Noah Fant, but it's probably one of the Philly guys or Cole Kmet. Kmet's still playing the snaps. He just needs to find the end zone, and it is Jacksonville, so that's always there. We're looking for the snaps. He's running routes. That's what we're looking for. So, but I do think you're trying to pay up for Kelce this week. I think, especially if Tyreek doesn't play. It's a no-brainer if Tyreek doesn't play. You're probably definitely, even if you're not playing Patrick Mahomes at quarterback in cash, you're still want to get it. So before we get into defense, RotoGrinders Premium, now you can just get the sports. You don't have to get everything. The combo premium pretty much includes everything but NASCAR now, so you can do that as well. We have single sport or the combo premium. I'm going to have Devin drop the link in chat one more time. It's going to take $10 off of that. We did have a question in YouTube, Allen or Watson. I'm guessing it's Josh Allen. I'm guessing it's a season-long question. I am in the Christmas cheer. So if you had to take Josh Allen or Deshaun Watson, you play your stud that's gotten you there, right? You just continue to play Josh Allen, right?
Yeah, it is very close. So I have Josh Allen QB6, Deshaun Watson QB7 this week. I know the past Patriots splits aren't great for Josh, but no Stephon Gilmore I think helps matters a lot there. And hey, Bills offense, they are humming right now. I think we got to, as you said, trust your studs. The question I've been getting all week is Josh Allen versus Jalen Hurts. So I'm happy we got to avoid this one here. But yes, give me Allen over Watson for sure.
And I think it's super close. I do. And as much as I love that Houston game, it's just Josh Allen probably got you there. Like you probably have been playing Josh Allen all year. Just play Josh Allen. So, and I think the Patriots defense is overrated. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
Any defenses standing out to you this week?
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah.
We mentioned some of the stacks with running backs earlier. I think the Seahawks with Carson, the Eagles with Sanders, and the Ravens with Dobbins stand out as strong possibilities. But every week when we look at this, we try to find just a dumpster dive defense that is priced as an awful defense. Maybe they actually aren't awful. I think it's the Denver Broncos this week. Going up against Herbert, who, hey, awesome rookie quarterback, but we've seen him be prone to mistakes, particularly if his weapons aren't all going to be there. The Broncos, obviously aren't the same caliber defense as past years without Von Miller and all those difference makers, but still a very well-coached unit. They remind me of the 49ers. Like when they face just an average offense, they can still look really good. Sometimes they're just completely outmanned, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case with the state of the Chargers offense. So Broncos at 2,300, like they are not the fifth worst defense on this slate, but they are being priced that way. So Broncos, if you really want to save some money, otherwise I'd be trying to stack with the running backs. I don't know if there's one just overwhelming defense I think we want to try to get to. I guess maybe the Washington football team versus the Panthers just has the highest floor because their defensive line is that good. But even then, it's just not something I'm prioritizing this week.
I kind of want Carolina to upset that game so bad. I want Washington, Philly, week 17. Who's going to make it? Like, right? Wouldn't that like open up the scenario for them to make it?
You sold me, Stevie.
Listen, I still like the Washington defense. I want Carolina to somehow win that game.
Yeah, fun.
I don't even hate the Carolina defense, to be honest. 2.7K. The Seahawks defense, we mentioned them a bunch, 2.6K. You talked about the Denver Broncos, 2.3K. If you want to go all the way down and play the Jets, like I'm not going to talk you off of it. Never going to talk you off of paying a 2K defense. Defense doesn't matter. It's usually like 4 or 5 points. So like if it's between like going like Kelsey Mahomes or something like that, like all right, give me the 2K defense. Who cares?
But if you might get some fluky special teams touchdown, like who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Like that's the thing. Like there's so much variance in defense. Some of the best defenses might not get a sack and like give up a few points, and like then they're not there either. So if you want to pay up this week, I do think that the Ravens defense is in a great spot against Daniel Limp Jones and that offense. So if you want to pay up for the Ravens defense, if you have the money, and the Patriots or the Steelers have looked awful. So like if you want to go like that route, so so we'll have to see. But Ian, any final thoughts before we get out of here and go spend some Christmas joy?
I think that's it, man. Happy holidays to everyone out there. And hey, celebrate this Christmas because next week we have the real Christmas. That is week 17, DFS Christmas. So, hey, don't go blowing your whole bankroll this week. We still got one more. I know season long is over in week 16, but week 17 is truly where we all get excited. So have a good, real life Christmas, but just be prepared for the real one coming in week 17.
Yeah, come on, Carolina. Make week 17 like it's Eagles in Washington. Make it even more
there we go.
Fun. So that's going to wrap it up here for week 16 of the Pro Football Focus Show here at RotoGrinders. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Merry Christmas to everyone, and we'll see you guys for week 17 next week.